The great hall of the Galactic Council buzzed with noise. Hundreds of alien voices spoke at once in different languages. Some hissed, some clicked, and others made sounds that hurt human ears. The air smelled of strange chemicals and alien breath. Ambassador Tae-min Park sat in the human section with his small team. Next to him sat Hana Kim, the smartest scientist Earth had ever sent to space. On his other side was Boram Lee, a soldier who looked calm but was always ready for trouble. Behind them, Jin Woo Choi sat quietly with his tablet, writing notes that no one else could see. Today was like every other day. The humans would try to help and the aliens would ignore them. Tae-min stood up when his turn came. He walked to the speaking platform in the center of the huge room. His footsteps echoed in the sudden quiet. All eyes turned to him, some with curiosity, most with boredom. Honored council members, Tae-min began. His voice was steady and clear. Earth wishes to share a new idea for faster travel between star systems. A low rumble of laughter came from the Zenthari section. These tall gray aliens thought humans were stupid. Their leader, War Prime Kethvar, had scales that changed color when he was angry or amused. Right now they were bright yellow, the color of mockery. Our scientists have found a way to make ships travel twice as fast, Tae-min continued. This would help trade and make emergency rescues much quicker. The Vorthak delegate made a sound like a cough. He had 4 arms and skin like wet leather. The newest pets think they can teach us about space travel, he said loudly. Other aliens laughed. We have been flying between stars since before your species learned to make fire. Hana Kim's hands tightened into fists under the table. She had spent 5 years working on this project. It could save millions of lives and make travel much cheaper. But she said nothing. Boram Lee touched the weapon at her side, then forced her hand back to the table. She had been trained to protect the human team. Sometimes that meant protecting them from her own anger. Tae-min waited for the laughter to stop. If the council would like to see our research on no need, interrupted the Nexari speaker. The crystal-like being's voice rang like a bell. We have more important matters to discuss. The trade dispute between the Mollusk Collective and the Mining Guild needs attention. Just like that, humanity's offer was pushed aside. It happened so often that Tae-min wasn't surprised anymore. He nodded politely and walked back to his seat. Jin Woo Choi typed quietly on his tablet. He recorded every word, every insult, every dismissal. His job was to watch and remember. The other aliens thought he was just taking notes for Earth's records. They had no idea his reports went to people they didn't know existed. The council moved on to other business. The Zenthari wanted more territory for their growing population. The Nexari complained about noise pollution near their meditation worlds. The Vorthak accused 3 different species of cheating in trade deals. Hours passed. The humans sat and listened. Sometimes Tae-min was allowed to speak about small things, like food safety standards or communication protocols. But whenever humans suggested something important, the response was always the same: laughter, dismissal, or complete silence. During a break, War Prime Kethvar walked past the human section. His scales were now deep purple, a sign of satisfaction. Perhaps you pets should stick to simpler tasks, he said to Tae-min. Leave the real work to real species. Hana Kim started to stand up, but Tae-min put a gentle hand on her arm. Thank you for your advice, War Prime, he said calmly. We will consider it carefully. The big alien laughed and walked away. He didn't see the look that passed between the humans. It was a look that said, remember this. When the session ended, most aliens rushed out to eat and drink together. They formed groups based on their species, talking loudly about their successes and failures. The humans packed their things slowly and quietly. Sir, Boram Lee said in a low voice. How long do we keep doing this? Tae-min looked around the empty hall. Cleaning robots were already moving between the seats, picking up trash left by the alien delegates. As long as Earth tells us to, he said. But as they walked toward the exit, his secure communicator buzzed. The message was short and came from Earth's most secret government office. Initiate protocol silence. Tae-min showed the message to his team, then deleted it. Hana Kim nodded slowly. Boram Lee smiled for the first time in months. Jin Woo Choi closed his tablet and stood up straighter. They had been waiting for this message for 2 years. Well, Tae-min said quietly, I guess that answers your question, Boram. Outside the council building, the 4 humans walked through the alien city. Strange creatures flew overhead. Vehicles that looked like floating bubbles carried passengers through the air. Markets sold food and goods from 1,000 different worlds. For years, the humans had tried to be part of this civilization. They had offered their knowledge, their friendship, and their help. In return, they had been treated like children who didn't know their place. But children grow up. And sometimes when they're ready, they leave home. None of the aliens noticed the quiet change in the humans that day. Why would they? Humans were just pets after all. Pets that would always be there, always trying to please their masters. They had no idea that the pets had just decided to find a new home. Jinwoo Choi sent his final report to Earth that night. It was longer than usual and ended with a single recommendation. Full withdrawal advised. They don't deserve what we can offer. The next morning, the humans began their quiet goodbye to the Galactic Council. It would take months for anyone to notice they were leaving. By then, it would be too late to stop them. 3 months had passed since the message from Earth. The changes started small, so small that nobody noticed at first. Dr. Soonja Yang stood in her laboratory on the mollusk collective homeworld. Around her, strange creatures that looked like giant sea slugs moved slowly through tanks of green water. She had been studying their biology for 2 years, learning how they could regrow lost body parts. Her research was almost finished. The knowledge could help millions of beings across the galaxy heal from terrible injuries. But today she was packing her equipment into storage boxes. Dr. Yang, gurgled her assistant, a young mollusk named Gleeptar. Why are you leaving? Your contract has 6 more months. Soonja smiled sadly as she placed her microscope in a padded case. My government needs me for a new project back home, she said. This was true, though not the whole truth. I'm sorry I can't stay to finish our work together. But what about the healing research? Gleeptar's eye stalks drooped with disappointment. You were so close to understanding our regeneration genes. You have all my notes, Soonja said. I'm sure your scientists can continue without me. What she didn't say was that her most important discoveries were stored in her head, not in any computer. The Mollusk Collective had been kind to her, but they had also laughed when humans first asked to join the council. Some wounds took time to heal, even for a species that could regrow their own arms. Soonja left the next day. Her ship headed toward human space, carrying knowledge that could have revolutionized medicine for 17 different species. Halfway across the galaxy, Captain Hyun-Sik Nam received a similar message. His patrol ship, Soul's Pride, had been working with Xanthari forces for 8 months. They hunted pirates and smugglers in the dangerous border regions between Council space and the Wild Territories. Captain, said his second-in-command, Lieutenant Subin Park, we're getting orders to return to Earth for maintenance. Hyun-Sik looked at the message on his screen. The Soul's Pride was in perfect condition. It didn't need maintenance, but orders were orders, especially when they came with special security codes. How long until we reach the nearest Stargate? He asked. 6 hours, sir. Good. Set course for Earth. The Xanthari commander they had been working with was not happy about this news. War Commander Zethral had grown to respect the human ship and its crew. They were good fighters and better strategists than most Council forces. This is a bad time for maintenance, Zethral said over the communication link. His scales showed orange frustration. Pirate activity has increased by 40% in this sector. I understand your concern, Hyun-Sik replied. But we have no choice. Earth's orders are final. How long will the repairs take? Hyun-Sik looked at his crew. They all knew the real answer, but they couldn't say it. Uncertain. Possibly several months. The Soul's Pride left the border patrol that afternoon. Within 2 weeks, 3 merchant ships were attacked by pirates in the area the humans had been protecting. The Xanthari had to pull ships from other sectors to fill the gap, leaving those areas weakly defended. On the trade station, Deep Market 7, Mi-Young Kang was having a different kind of conversation. She sat across from broker Velthian, a spider-like alien who controlled shipping contracts worth billions of credits. I don't understand, Velthian clicked with his mouth parts. Humans have always been reliable trade partners. Why are you canceling these contracts? Mi-Young kept her face calm and professional. Earth is redirecting resources to domestic development. We need to focus on our own worlds for a while. But these are profitable contracts, the alien insisted. His 8 eyes blinked in confusion. Your species has never turned down profitable work before. Times change, Mi-young said simply. She stood up and gathered her papers. We'll honor all current agreements, of course, but no new contracts for the foreseeable future. Velthian watched her leave with growing concern. Human traders were some of the most honest and efficient in the galaxy. Finding replacements would be difficult and expensive. The real crisis started on Industrial World Kappa 7. Engineer Dong Hyun-jian had been overseeing construction of a new water treatment plant. The planet's population of 4 million depended on clean water, and the old systems were failing. Dong Hyun's human crew had worked for 6 months, using techniques that no other species fully understood. They could purify water faster and cheaper than anyone else in the galaxy. The project was nearly complete. Mr. Jian, said the Aquatic Dominion Overseer Counselor Bluwavek, the progress reports show you're ahead of schedule. Excellent work as always. Dong Hyun nodded but looked uncomfortable. Thank you, Counselor. We should have the primary systems online within the week. And then you'll begin Phase 2 of the project? Actually, no. Dong Hyun hesitated. My team has been recalled to Earth. We won't be able to take on the expansion work. Bluwavek's gill slits fluttered with surprise. But who will handle the advanced systems? Your human techniques are the only ones that work efficiently on our world. I'm sure you can find qualified engineers from other species, Dong Hyun said, though he knew this wasn't true. The local conditions on Kappa 7 were too harsh for most construction methods. Only human adaptability and creativity had made the project possible. How long until your replacement team arrives? Dong Hyun avoided the alien's eyes. There won't be a replacement team. Earth has other priorities now. The human construction crews finished their current work and left the planet 2 days later. The water treatment plant ran perfectly, for about 3 months. Then problems started appearing. Systems that humans had designed to be self-repairing began breaking down. Without human maintenance crews, the fixes took weeks instead of hours. By the end of the year, 4 planets were facing water shortages because their human-built systems needed repairs that nobody else knew how to make. Dr. Yoon-ji Song published her final research paper from the Council Science Institute. Her work on quantum field manipulation had been the foundation for faster-than-light communication improvements. 3 different projects depended on her continued research, but when the institute director asked her to renew her contract, she politely declined. I've decided to pursue independent research, she told Dr. Clixenoth, the insect-like director. Earth has some interesting opportunities for me. But Dr. Song, the alien buzzed, your work here is revolutionary. You're on the verge of breakthrough discoveries that could change galactic communication forever. I'm sure your other researchers can continue the work, Yoon-ji said. She had already transferred her basic research to the Institute's databases. But the key insights, the creative leaps that made her work special, would be leaving with her. All across Council space, humans were quietly finishing their jobs and going home. They didn't make loud announcements. They didn't demand attention. They simply completed their current work and politely declined new assignments. Most council members didn't notice. Humans had always been quiet and efficient. If they were being a little more quiet than usual, well, that was probably a good thing. Less noise from the newest members of galactic civilization. But in the shadows, problems were starting. Systems that humans had built or maintained were beginning to fail. Projects that depended on human expertise were stalling. Trade routes that humans had managed were becoming less efficient. The Galactic Council was like a vast machine with thousands of moving parts. For years, humans had been quietly fixing the small problems, keeping everything running smoothly. They had been the oil that kept the machine working without friction. Now the oil was disappearing drop by drop. Soon the machine would start making noise. Then it would start breaking down. But by the time the Council noticed the problems, the humans would be long gone. Counselor Vexhai of the Aquatic Dominion arrived early for the council session, as he always did. He liked to review his notes in the quiet hall before the chaos of debate began. But today, something felt different. The human section was completely empty. Vexhai had attended council sessions for 12 years. In all that time, he had never seen the human chairs without at least one occupant. Even during their smallest delegations, someone from Earth was always present. He checked his gill clock. The session would begin in 30 minutes. Maybe the humans were just running late. But 30 minutes later, when Council Speaker Threndar called the session to order, the human section remained empty. Every single chair sat vacant, looking somehow larger and more obvious in their emptiness. "Honored speaker," HFY said, raising his flipper for attention. "Where is the human delegation?" Threndar, a tall being with purple skin and too many joints in his arms, checked his notes. The human representatives submitted formal notices of temporary withdrawal due to administrative requirements on their homeworld. Several council members murmured among themselves. Temporary withdrawals were not uncommon, but usually only 1 or 2 representatives would be absent at a time. "All of them?" asked Crystal Singer Melthera of the Nexari. Her voice chimed like distant bells. "Even their observers?" "The notice was signed by Ambassador Taman Park on behalf of the entire Earth delegation," Threndar replied. "They expect to resume participation when their domestic issues are resolved." War Prime Kethvar of the Zenthari made a dismissive sound. His scales showed bright green satisfaction. "Perhaps now we can conduct real business without constant interruptions from primitives." Most of the council agreed. The session proceeded more quickly without human proposals to slow things down. Decisions were made faster. There was less debate about minor details that humans always seem to worry about, but problems began appearing almost immediately. The council's communication network started having strange glitches. Messages took longer to send. Some communications failed completely. The system had been running perfectly for months, but now it was acting like old. Poorly maintained equipment. Counselor HFY tried to contact Systems Administrator Kyung-ho Park, the human who usually fixed these problems within hours. The message came back with an automatic reply. "Currently unavailable. Please contact local technical support." Local technical support took 3 days to figure out what was wrong. They eventually got the system working again, but it was slow and unreliable. The elegant efficiency that Kyung-ho had built into the network was gone. Worse problems emerged at the medical conference on Healing Station Alpha. Dr. Ji Lim had been attending these meetings for 2 years, quietly sharing treatment methods that had saved thousands of lives. Her techniques for treating radiation poisoning were especially valuable to species that lived near dangerous stars. But when the plague outbreak started on 3 Zenthari worlds, Dr. Lim was nowhere to be found. The disease was similar to others she had treated, but without her expertise, the medical team struggled to develop effective treatments. "Where is the human medical expert?" demanded healer Kresheval, whose own people were dying by the hundreds. Her knowledge could save millions of lives. "Dr. Lim has returned to Earth," replied Station Administrator Flexoak. She said something about pursuing new research directions. The plague continued to spread. Traditional treatments were too slow. Species that had mocked human medical knowledge just months ago now desperately wished for Dr. Lim's help. Captain Young Mi. Sio's absence became obvious during the joint military exercises in the Kronos system. Her fleet had participated in these training missions for 3 years, always arriving precisely on time and performing with flawless coordination. The other fleets waited for 6 hours before Admiral Grexoth of the Vorthak finally contacted the exercise. "Coordinators, where are the human ships?" he demanded. "We cannot begin the exercises without all participants." "The human fleet submitted a notice of unavailability," came the reply. "They are conducting domestic training exercises in their own territory." The joint exercises proceeded without human participation, but something was missing. The human fleet had always served as the coordination hub for complex multi-species operations. Their communication systems were superior, and their tactical computers could track hundreds of ships simultaneously. Without the humans, the exercises were clumsy and inefficient. 3 mock battles ended in confusion when ships couldn't communicate properly with their allies. 2 near collisions occurred because navigation data was not being shared correctly. The real crisis hit Station Harmony 7 in the middle of the night. The station was home to 50,000 beings from 15 different species. It served as a crucial transfer point for goods and passengers traveling between the Outer Rim and core worlds. At 0347 station time, the primary life support system failed. Backup systems kicked in automatically, but they were only designed to last 48 hours. The station needed repairs, and it needed them fast. Under normal circumstances, Maintenance Chief Won-shik Kim and his human technical team would have responded within minutes. They had been on call for emergencies like this for over a year, and they had never failed to solve a problem quickly. But Warship Kim was no longer on Station Harmony 7. His entire team had transferred back to human space 2 months ago. Station Administrator Quinfell sent emergency messages to every available repair service in the sector. The responses were not encouraging. Estimated. Repair time, 72 hours, came the first reply. We can have a team there in 4 days, said another. Complex life support. Repairs will require 6 to 8 days. Estimated a third. Quinfell stared at the messages in growing panic. The station only had 2 days of backup life support. If repairs took longer than that, they would have to evacuate 50,000 beings. The logistics alone would be a nightmare. Worse, 17 people had already died when the primary system failed. More would die if the repairs took too long. Contact the Human Repair Service. Quinfell ordered desperately. They're no longer accepting contracts outside human space, his assistant replied. The repair teams that finally arrived were competent, but they had never worked on human-designed systems before. Warship Kim had modified the station's life support using techniques that other species didn't fully understand. The repairs took 3 weeks instead of 3 hours. During those 3 weeks, the station operated on emergency power. Living conditions were miserable. Food spoiled, because refrigeration systems were shut down to save energy. Water was rationed. The air recycling systems ran at minimum capacity, making every breath feel stale and thin. Cultural liaison Jaeun O's absence became obvious during the trade negotiations between the Mollusk Collective and the Mining Guild. These two species had been arguing about resource rights for 6 months. Their languages and thought patterns were so different that communication was almost impossible without a skilled translator. Jaeun had been quietly facilitating these discussions, helping each side understand what the other really meant. Her human perspective allowed her to bridge gaps between alien minds that thought in completely different ways. Without her, the negotiations collapsed into confusion and anger. The mollusk representative kept saying things that the Mining Guild heard as insults. The Mining Guild's demands sounded like threats to the peaceful mollusks. 3 major trade agreements fell apart in a single week. Billions of credits in commerce ground to a halt. Resources that could have fed hungry worlds remained stuck in legal disputes. Emergency Coordinator Jae Sung-yoon's absence wasn't noticed until the Void Hunters began their probe attacks on the Outer Rim. These ancient enemies had been quiet for centuries, but now they were testing Council defenses with small, fast raids. Jae Sung had spent 2 years creating early warning systems throughout Council space. His network of sensors and communication relays could detect Void Hunter ships before they crossed into inhabited systems. But the early warning system had gone dark 6 months ago. Nobody had noticed because the Void Hunters hadn't been active. Now, by the time Council forces detected the enemy ships, 3 colonies had already been attacked. Councillor Vexai sat in his office after another disastrous Council session, staring at reports of failing systems and mounting crises. In just 6 months, everything had started falling apart. The truth was becoming impossible to ignore. For years, humans had been the glue holding galactic civilization together. They had fixed problems that other species didn't even notice. They had prevented conflicts before they started. They had kept vital systems running smoothly while everyone else focused on more dramatic concerns. Now they were gone, and the cracks were beginning to show. Vexai reached for his communicator and sent a message to Earth's diplomatic channels. It was a simple request. Please send representatives to discuss the current crisis. The reply came back within hours. Message delivery failed. Recipient address no longer accepting communications. Earth had closed its doors. The humans were gone, and they weren't coming back. The Galactic Council's emergency session began at dawn on the capital world. For the first time in decades, every major species had sent their highest representatives. The usual noise and chatter was replaced by worried whispers and nervous glances. Council Speaker Threndar looked older than his 300 years as he called the meeting to order. His purple skin had a gray tinge that showed deep concern. Honored members, we face an unprecedented crisis. Multiple system failures across our territory require immediate attention. War Prime Kethvar of the Zenthari stood first. His scales were dark red with anger and embarrassment. My military commanders report complete breakdown of coordination networks. 3 of our border worlds have been raided by pirates. Our response time has increased by 400%. The numbers painted a grim picture. Without Captain Hyun-sik Nam's patrol ships, the border regions had become a hunting ground for criminals. The Zenthari military, so proud of their strength, couldn't protect their own territory. It gets worse, Kethvar continued. The plague outbreak on our core worlds is spreading unchecked. Our medical teams cannot develop effective treatments. They keep asking for the human doctor who used to attend our medical conferences. Crystal singer Melthara of the Nexari spoke next, her bell-like voice cracking with strain. Our meditation chambers are failing. The acoustic balance that took centuries to perfect is now completely wrong. Our spiritual leaders cannot reach proper harmony states. Our culture itself is under threat. She didn't mention that sound engineer Minho Lee had spent months carefully adjusting every chamber on 17 different worlds. His understanding of sound and vibration was unlike anything the Nexari had ever encountered. Without his maintenance, their most sacred spaces were becoming just empty rooms. Broker Velthian clicked nervously as he addressed the assembly. His 8 eyes were dim with exhaustion. Trade networks are collapsing. Shipping schedules that ran perfectly for years are now in chaos. Contracts worth billions of credits are being canceled because nobody can coordinate the logistics properly. The spider-like alien pulled up, holographic displays showing trade routes throughout council space. Red warnings flashed everywhere. The human trade coordinators handled over 60% of interspecies commerce. They didn't just move goods. They solved problems we didn't even know existed. Chief Administrator Sung Ho Baek had been processing thousands of bureaucratic details that kept the council government functioning. His departure had created a cascade of administrative failures. Forms weren't being filed correctly. Schedules were double booked. Important meetings were being forgotten entirely. I have 17 different departments requesting emergency assistance, reported bureaucrat Prime Klexon, his forearms waving frantically. The humans handled coordination between agencies that speak different languages and follow different procedures. Without them, our own government is becoming paralyzed. But the worst news came from Security Chief Grashek of the Vorthak military. His leather-like skin was pale with fear as he activated the tactical display at the center of the hall. The Void Hunter probes have penetrated deeper into our territory, he announced. They destroyed the colony on Frontier 9 before we even detected their presence. Our early warning systems are completely blind. A collective gasp echoed through the chamber. The Void Hunters were the ancient enemy that had nearly destroyed galactic civilization millennia ago. Their return had always been feared, but the Council had believed they were prepared. How is this possible? Demanded Crystal Singer Melthara. We had the most advanced detection network in known space. Yes, Grashek replied grimly. We had it, but that network was designed and maintained by security specialist Heejin Cho. She left 6 months ago. The systems have been slowly failing ever since. The chamber erupted in panicked voices. Some species blamed others for driving away the humans. Some demanded immediate action to restore the defensive systems. Others suggested trying to contact Earth for emergency assistance. We already tried, Council Speaker Threndar said, raising his voice over the chaos. All communication channels to Earth have been closed. Our messages are returned undelivered. Our diplomatic ships are turned away at the borders of human space. Councillor Vexhai of the Aquatic Dominion had been silent until now. His gill slits fluttered slowly as he processed the full scope of the disaster. We need to face the truth, he said. The humans weren't just participants in our civilization. They were holding it together. The chamber fell silent. Nobody wanted to admit it, but the evidence was overwhelming. Think about it, Vexhai continued. Every crisis we're facing can be traced to the departure of a specific human expert. They weren't just doing jobs. They were solving problems that the rest of us couldn't or wouldn't handle. Logistics coordinator Sangmin Ryu had managed supply chains across 40 star systems. His replacement teams had tried to use the same routes and schedules, but everything was taking longer and costing more. 3 worlds were facing food shortages because shipments kept getting delayed or lost. Research Director In Sung Ko had been leading breakthrough projects in 17 different fields. His human team had a way of thinking that cut across species barriers, finding connections that nobody else could see. Without them, scientific progress had slowed to a crawl. Diplomatic protocol specialist Yejin Han had been preventing hundreds of minor cultural conflicts from turning into major incidents. She understood how different species thought and communicated, and she could find ways to help them work together. Without her guidance, small misunderstandings were escalating into trade wars and territorial disputes. The humans were like the nervous system of our civilization, Vexai said. They carried information between parts that couldn't communicate directly. They coordinated actions between groups that didn't trust each other. They solved problems before the rest of us even knew the problems existed. War Prime Kethvar's scales showed deep purple shame. We called them pets. We laughed at their ideas. We dismissed their contributions as unimportant. Because they were quiet about their importance, added Broker Velthian. They never demanded recognition. They just did the work and made everything function better. Dr. Sujin Moon's medical research had led to breakthrough treatments for diseases that affected dozens of species. Her work on genetic therapy had been saving lives across the galaxy. But she was gone now, and her research had gone with her. The plague on Zenthari worlds was spreading because nobody else understood her techniques well enough to adapt them. The Grand Speaker of the Mollusk Collective finally emerged from her shell to address the assembly. Her ancient voice was barely a whisper, but every being in the chamber strained to hear her words. In our arrogance, we have made a terrible mistake, she said. We treated the humans as newcomers who should be grateful for our acceptance. We failed to see that they were teachers who could have helped us all grow. The truth settled over the chamber like a heavy blanket. For years, the council had functioned better than ever before. Trade was more efficient. Conflicts were less common. Technology advanced at an unprecedented pace. Systems worked smoothly without the constant maintenance they had required in the past. Everyone had assumed this improvement was natural progress. Nobody had noticed that it coincided exactly with humanity's integration into galactic society. What do we do now? Asked Crystal Singer Melthara. Council Speaker Threndar looked around the chamber at the representatives of dozens of proud species. We swallow our pride, he said. We apologize. We beg them to come back. But even as he spoke, new reports were coming in. The Void Hunters had attacked 2 more colonies. The plague was spreading to new worlds. Infrastructure failures were cascading through every major system in council space. Time was running out. The proud galactic civilization that had existed for thousands of years was falling apart in a matter of months. And somewhere in the depths of space, humanity was watching it all happen. They had tried to help. They had offered their knowledge and their friendship. They had been rejected and ridiculed, now they were gone. And the galaxy was learning the true cost of their departure. Emergency Coordinator Jae Sung-yoon sat in his new office on Earth, reading intelligence reports from Council Space. The Void Hunter attacks were following exactly the patterns he had predicted 3 years ago. His early warning system could have prevented every single raid, but the Council had never asked to see his strategic analysis. They had been too busy laughing at human paranoia to listen to human wisdom. He filed the reports in a secure database and returned to his new project, designing defenses for humanity's expanding territory. The Council's loss would be humanity's gain. The galaxy was vast, and there was plenty of room for a species that knew how to build things properly. The message from War Prime Kethvar arrived at Earth's diplomatic center on a Tuesday morning. It was marked with the highest priority codes and sealed with the official stamp of the Zenthari Empire. The message was simple and unprecedented. A formal apology from one of the galaxy's most proud species. To the honored government of Earth, the message began. The Zenthari Empire acknowledges its grave error in judgment regarding humanity's contributions to galactic civilization. We request immediate assistance in containing the medical crisis affecting our worlds. We are prepared to offer significant compensation and formal recognition of human expertise. The message was sent back the same day, unopened. Minister of Galactic Affairs Taemin Park stood at his office window, looking out at the sprawling city of New Geneva. It had grown rapidly in the past year as human resources were redirected from council space to domestic development. Construction robots worked day and night, building facilities that would have taken decades to complete using traditional methods. Sir, his assistant announced over the intercom, another apology message has arrived. This one is from the Nexari Harmony Weaver. File it with the others, Taemin replied without turning from the window. The Nexari message was even more elaborate than the Zenthari apology. It came as a crystal song composition, their highest form of artistic expression. Translated into human language, it spoke of deep regret, acknowledgement of human wisdom, and desperate pleas for sound engineer Min-Ho Lee to return to repair their sacred chambers. Like all the others, it was politely returned unread. The Mollusk Collective took a different approach. They offered to share their most sacred spawning grounds with humanity, an honor never before extended to any alien species. The offer came with detailed proposals for scientific exchange and cultural cooperation. The automated response was the same as all the rest. Thank you for your message. Earth is not currently accepting diplomatic communications from Galactic Council members. But the real crisis was just beginning. The Void Hunters had moved beyond simple probing attacks. Their full invasion fleet had been detected at the edge of Council space, and it was massive. Sensors showed thousands of ships approaching from the dark regions beyond known stars. Without Emergency Coordinator Jae Sung-yoon's early warning network, the Council had lost precious weeks before detecting the threat. Without his strategic planning, they had no coordinated defense strategy. Without his logistics expertise, they couldn't even organize their own fleets properly. Admiral Grexoth of the Vorthak sent increasingly desperate messages to Earth's military command. His requests started with formal offers of alliance and escalated to barely concealed begging for assistance. Human tactical systems proved superior in joint exercises, one message read. Request immediate consultation on Void Hunter defense strategies. Willing to discuss permanent technology sharing agreements. Fleet Admiral Chul Su-kang read these messages from his command center in the Sol system. Around him, displays showed the deployment of humanity's own fleets, not to Council space, but to the 37 star systems that Earth now claimed as its exclusive territory. These systems contained some of the richest resource deposits in known space. More importantly, they were positioned along key stellar trade routes that would become crucial as humanity expanded further into the galaxy. While the Council had been dismissing human survey reports, human scouts had been quietly mapping the most valuable real estate in the local stellar group. Admiral, his aide asked, should we respond to the Vorthak requests? Log them for historical records, Chul-Su replied. But no response necessary. The Galactic Council's emergency sessions were becoming daily events as the crisis deepened. Infrastructure continued to collapse without human maintenance. The Void Hunter invasion was accelerating. Internal conflicts were erupting as species blamed each other for driving humanity away. Counselor Vexhai had been promoted to emergency coordinator, but he was struggling without the systems that humans had built. We need to face reality, he told the assembly. We cannot handle this crisis without human assistance. Then we humble ourselves completely, declared Crystal Singer Melthara. Her once beautiful voice was harsh from stress. We admit our mistakes and ask for forgiveness. But Earth's silence continued. Every message went unanswered. Every diplomatic approach was politely deflected. The humans had not just left. They had shut the door behind them. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. The Cathali, a small species that had always been friendly to humans, sent a private message through unofficial channels. Unlike the major powers, they had never mocked or dismissed human contributions. We understand Earth's position, their message read, but innocent beings are dying. Is there any possibility of humanitarian assistance, even if political reconciliation is impossible? This message did receive a response, though not from Earth's government. Dr. Sunja Yang, now working at a medical research facility on Luna, sent medical treatment protocols that could help contain the plague. She did this privately, as a personal favor to colleagues she had worked with during her time in Council space. The treatments worked. The plague that had been killing thousands began to slow its spread. But this small act of mercy only highlighted what the Council had lost, the routine, daily cooperation that had made everything work better. Meanwhile, humanity's expansion was accelerating. 17 species had quietly approached Earth with offers of alliance and cooperation. These were smaller groups, species that had been overlooked or marginalized by the major powers in the Council. The Cathali were first to join the human alliance, followed by the spiral dancers, a graceful aquatic species with incredible mathematical abilities. The Tekvar, master craftsmen who had been excluded from Council membership for being too primitive, brought engineering skills that complemented human innovation perfectly. Trade representative. Mi-young Kang was busy negotiating agreements with these new partners. Unlike the rigid hierarchical structure of the Galactic Council, the human alliance was built on principles of mutual respect and shared benefit. Each member species contributed their strengths while learning from others. "It's remarkable," Mi Young reported to the Alliance Council. "When species work together as equals instead of competing for dominance, progress happens much faster." The Human Alliance controlled the richest and most strategically valuable territory in the local sector. Their technology was advancing rapidly through true cooperation rather than competitive secrecy. Their trade networks were more efficient than anything the Galactic Council had ever achieved. Back in Council space, the Void Hunter invasion was reaching critical levels. 3 major worlds had fallen. The refugee crisis was overwhelming remaining systems. The proud species that had once ruled the galaxy were learning what defeat looked like. War Prime Kethavar sent one final message to Earth. This time, it was not an official diplomatic communication. It was a personal plea from one military leader to another. "Admiral Chul Su Kung," the message began, "I write not as a representative of the Zenthari Empire, but as a soldier who has seen too much death. I know we do not deserve your help. I know we have earned your contempt. But millions of innocent beings are dying. If there is any mercy left in humanity, please consider that these victims did not choose the policies that drove you away." The message sat in Chul Su Kung's private files for 3 days. When he finally responded, it was brief. "Evacuation routes through Human Alliance space will be open for refugee transport. No military assistance will be provided." It was not the salvation the Council had hoped for, but it was something. A narrow corridor opened through human territory, allowing civilian evacuations from the war zone. Human ships provided escort and medical aid to refugee convoys, but they did not engage Void Hunter forces. The gesture was humanitarian, not political. It saved millions of lives, but it also demonstrated humanity's new position. They were no longer part of the galactic community that had rejected them. They had become something else. A neighboring power that would help those in need while pursuing its own destiny among the stars. Historian Yu Jin. Nam recorded the final entry in Earth's official history of its relationship with the Galactic Council. After careful consideration and extensive attempts at cooperation, humanity has concluded that its values and methods are incompatible with Council governance. Earth hereby establishes independent relationships with species and groups willing to engage in genuine partnership rather than hierarchical subordination. The document was signed by every member of Earth's government and transmitted to every inhabited world in known space. It was not just a declaration of independence, it was an invitation to a better way of doing things. The Human Alliance grew rapidly as species abandoned the failing Council structure. By the end of the first year, it included 47 different groups, ranging from major civilizations to small colony worlds that had never been allowed Council membership. The galaxy was reshaping itself around humanity's vision of cooperation rather than domination. The proud species that had once dismissed humans as newest pets were learning the true meaning of insignificance as their former subjects found better partners among the stars.